Consulting Services. We are a global marketing advisory. We offer global marketing advisory services, and our main mission is to empower women, startups, and women entrepreneurs to navigate the international markets through creative export strategies. And the most important thing to understand is that when we're going global, you have to be ready and understand the market that you're going into. And today's pitch persons who pitch their businesses today, there are a number of them who actually had long-term business plan of going global, long-term goal of going global, which is really interesting and really good, because you cannot just get up and say, okay, we're going to export today, right? So with that in mind, today we're going to be taking a look at just a quick thing of what is exporting. Then we go into the four considerations. Then we're going to close off with question and answers. And as I indicated, I am the founder of Global Compass Consulting Services. I'm conscious of the time. Consulting Services. And we offer a number of services that help our exporters to understand the new markets that they're actually targeting to go global. And what we offer is a number of services called, one is Market Compass, where we offer market intelligence on the global market you're interested into. So doing that analysis on your behalf. Cheryl spoke about doing a competitor analysis. That's one of the things that we do. We also have Export Compass, where we help you to create export business plans. And we also offer some coaching. And we also offer events where we take you on trade missions, virtual and in person, and also market visits. And that would include a trade show or just having B2B meetings on a trade mission. So I spoke about exporting, and exporting is really selling your goods and services across borders, and that's it for exchange of currency, right? And we're in the world now where we have different new currencies, cryptocurrencies, that are being used to trade, to pay for goods and services while still unregulated. So that's something for another discussion. What is so good about exporting? Exporting is good to increase your sales, hedge against downturn in your local market, also give you a competitive edge. You can use it to capitalize on trade agreements that our governments have put in place with other jurisdictions, right? And some of those opportunities that are there is duty-free tariffs. Duty-free tariffs, product, your consumer packaged good can enter a new market on its own, duty-free or quota-free in some instances. But it's not always easy exporting, right? You have export risks, for example, currency fluctuation, for example, not having a trade compliant product, right? Or having a lack of knowledge on the trade rules for your particular product, right? So there are four things that you really need to consider when thinking of going global. And one of the first things that I like to address is export readiness. Export readiness. And there are quite a few. I took a look at some of the products that are that were pitched, and I noticed the nutritional labels and you know calories and all of that are in place on some of the products. And I think that's very well. That's one compliant trade compliance when going global, that's in place already. So being export ready is really about being ready to access a new market. But yes, your product may be on point. It may be selling well in your local market, but are you really export ready? Is your company export ready? Is it ready to scale up if you get a big order in a new market? These are the things you need to consider, right? You need to consider, do you have the financial foundation to go global? If you're working with a supplier, would your supplier be able to ramp up to fill orders, to help you fill the orders you've gotten? So being export ready is not only about the product being export ready, but also your company being export ready. And there's a continuum of export readiness. You're export interested, so you're interested in a new market. It will be your first foray into an international market. Being export ready, so both your product and your company is ready to export. And also, there are times when persons who have been exporting for years may need to look at new markets or revamp their products for the changing trends that are happening in the environment. The second thing that I want you to pay attention to is having that market entry strategy in place, right? If you're planning for market entry, you have to do your research. You have to understand the market that you're entering into. So, if you're going into the food market, you have to understand the customs of that, the customs around social cultural norms around food in that market, so that when you're marketing that product, you are not marketing it as you would in your domestic market. You would have to adapt that product for that new market. So you'll have to do some work. You'd have to do some market intelligence. So you'd have to research the demand for your product in that market. And also, does it really make sense to be in that sector? Is there any market share for you? Are they really making money over there? And earlier we heard Paul talk about margins. What are the profit margins there? Is it thin? Will it help you achieve your goals on with regards to your profit that you want to make, or your return on investment if you just want to break even in the first quarter, the first year? And the third thing that I wanted to share with you to consider is to understand the terms of trade. Yes, it's really good to work with a custom broker, but it's good also to go in with a little bit of knowledge, so that when you're having that conversation with your custom broker and he's speaking to you, have an understanding of what he's trying to say to you. So some of the terms of trade that I'd like to talk about here are actually, what is your tariff code? You may have an understanding, and I say tariff code is a longer name. However, kind of understand what is the code for your product that's exiting your local market, because then you'll have an understanding of the tariff or the duty that will be applied when it reaches into the other market. So you can also help with your pricing in that manner, right? The other thing is that you would need to pay attention to is regulations. Regulations are very important, especially when you're talking about food or anything that's going to be ingested, especially in your skin. But even beyond that, in other areas, there are regulations that you have to follow. One of them is actually labeling, right? Labeling requirements, packaging requirements. There may be certification. There may be certifications that you can use to market your product much better in a marketplace. For example, gluten-free, organic product. All of those can give you extra marketability in the product, in the market that you're going into, right? Another thing that you have to be aware of is also the protection of your intellectual property. If you're going in with a product that needs to be protected from being copied, understand whether or not the country you're going into actually respect intellectual property rights and have signed on to any conventions, as a government has signed on to any of the convention of the World Intellectual Property Organization. The sorry, I'm going fast. The other thing is documentation. Have an understanding of documentation, right? Your custom invoice, your packing list, any certifications. For example, if you're exporting in a country that wants a rules of origin certificate because of the kind of product that you're exporting, it's always good to find out about that from your Chamber of Commerce before exporting. Bill of lading. All of this is very important when you're exporting your goods. The fourth consideration that you need to take into take into consideration is actually your logistics. How are you going to get your products into the hands of your consumers, right? How are you going to get it there? So there are quite a few modes of transportation that are in place that you can tap into. When you're starting small, the post office is a good place to start. Air, so there are four modes of transportation that we always refer to, right? That's using air cargo or using shipping through seaports or through rail or through our highways. And in some instances, there are more than one mode of transportation that can be used. So they're intermodal. So based on your company, the product, and the packaging requirements, you will choose the type of transportation to export your goods abroad. So to wrap it up, I've spoken about four market access considerations to make when going global. Access your export readiness, implement a market entry strategy. So you're going to do your research, your market intelligence, and understanding the terms of trade. So talk about your classification, talking about your documentation, understanding which category your product falls in when it comes to the tariff codes, and then logistics, determining the best mode of transportation for your goods. I was about to say goods and services. I always say goods and services. So those are the four considerations. I want to thank Dwayna Peel and her team at the Canadian Small Business Women for this opportunity to share this presentation with you. Not not going off without a hitch. This is my first time using Poppin to do a presentation. If you have any questions, you can go ahead and ask it in the chat. I'm doing a Facebook class for 6 weeks. It's called Charting Your Export Pathways, and it would be starting on the 30th of November at 2 p.m. for the next 6 weeks. And it's just going deeper into what I just discussed with you in rapidly. There's the link in the chat. Are there any questions about going global, ladies and gentlemen? Or is all ladies? All ladies? No? No one is interested in going global? Tapping into some of those funds that are going to be available that you can use to actually do market research on a new market? Is there any section that you'd like me to go over? Okay, I will elaborate a bit more on being export ready. There are other areas of your business that you'd have to take a look at when going global, and that is, do you have the human resource internally that can help you access a new market, that can drive you going into a new market? Sometimes you may not have someone that understand international markets or understand exporting. You can always get a marketing company in that market to help you understand that marketplace. Another thing is looking at your product itself and seeing if it will be compliant in that new market. So, is the labeling requirements of that market compliant? For example, in Canada, the labeling requirements is requirements that you have it in 2 languages, English and French. If you're going into another market that English is not the first language, that is something that you'd have to invest in, labels. And printing labels is not a cheap, doing it in small batches is not a cheap way to go. So that's my presentation for today. I want to thank everyone for being patient with me and my Mac. And now I know better. I'm going to have to do some more troubleshooting because it was allowed. I'm not sure what happened, but thank you very much and have a good afternoon. Right on the dot.